You're listening to Three Things to Know with Stephanie Haney, with experts and insiders on what you need to know in Northeast Ohio.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Three Things to Know podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Haney, and I'm very excited to have you back here with me. After a couple weeks off, took a little bit of time away, had a nice little trip, went down to Florida, had some travel issues like pretty much everybody else in the country is having, but got to Florida, had a nice time, got a little sunshine in, and very happy to be back. And today we're talking about, one of my favorite topics, love. I love to talk about love, and we have an update today, a sort of update, or at least a different take on something that we've talked about before. You may know, if you don't know, you should go back and take a look, that previously we had Dr. Gary Chapman on the podcast, and he is the author and the creator of the 5 love languages. So we talked with him all about those 5 love languages. Those are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Well, turns out there is a bit of an update on those love languages, and we're going to be talking about those today. We are going to be talking with a matchmaker. Her name is Natalie Fry. She's a friend of the podcast. She's been on this podcast multiple times, always talking about love and what it's like to date here in Cleveland and the things that we need to know to be better partners and take care of our own wants and needs and things. So Natalie came to me and she said, there's this company called Truity, and they have come up with 7 modern love styles. I said, we have to talk about that. We absolutely have to talk about that because we had Dr. Chapman on and talked about his love language. So a little bit about this company, okay? It's Truity Psychometrics, and they develop and publish online personality and career tests. So did a little research into what they did to come up with these 7 love styles. In 2022, so this year, within the past several months, they did a survey of over 500,000 people. They wanted to see if a more diverse and more current set of data still supported Dr. Chapman's ideas about the 5 love languages. So based on this, they have come up now with what they are calling the 7 modern love styles. And I'm not an expert on them, but Natalie has been doing some looking into these things. So we're going to bring her in now to explain to us the 7 modern love styles, what we need to know, and how they can help us be better to ourselves and each other. So let's bring in our friend of the show, Natalie, right now. Natalie, thanks so much for joining us again here on the 3 Things to Know podcast.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks so much for having me again.
When we became aware that these love styles had been updated, very interested in this. You and I have talked about the dating scene here in Cleveland before and other places. And it was interesting to me that Truity, this company, felt the need to update the love languages, or the love styles as they call them. So tell us, why did Truity feel the need to do this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think, gender and cultural norms have definitely evolved. The original 5 love languages that were coined by Dr. Chapman, that was about 30 years ago. So a lot has changed. Now, there is some overlap with the 5 original and the new 7 styles, but I think it's just a little bit more detailed, and I understand what's come out of those changes. It makes sense.
Yeah, I was surprised taking a look at the new style. So we're going to get into that right now. And I definitely am excited to be taking a look at this from that more inclusive perspective. There are lots of ways to love out there. There are lots of different kinds of partnerships. So clue us in. What are the 7 modern love styles according to Truity?
So we have activity, appreciation, emotional, financial, intellectual, physical, and practical.
Okay. So I can see what you're saying there. Definitely some overlap there, but it seems like 2 of those kind of caught my eye. Are there 2 of them that are particularly really unique here?
I think I don't know about particularly unique. Maybe activity is different. That wasn't as much. There was quality time before, but activities a little bit more specific about your hobbies and interests.
Intellectual kind of piqued my interest. That was kind of something that I feel like wasn't really captured before.
True. Yeah, intellectual is one that wasn't before. But all the other ones, I think there is some overlap.
Just getting a little more specific down to the nitty gritty. Okay, so we ran through them really quick here. That's kind of what I want to do right now. Can we talk about them one by one and then maybe give some examples for people? I'd like to start with activity, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and so this is the one that's sort of similar to quality time, but focusing on taking an interest in your partner's favorite hobbies and activities instead.
Okay, so we're talking about going a little more in depth there, not just sitting on the couch together, not just having that dinner together, which are things that we all have to do. We don't all have to sit on the couch, but we all have to eat, right? But this gets a little more specific, like maybe if somebody likes snowboarding. I like snowboarding, doing that with them.
Might take a little bit of time for your partner to learn the ropes, but would definitely showcase their love for you, right? Willing to get out there and throw on some gear, hit the slopes. I like it.
Yeah, well, I can definitely teach someone how to fall down. That's for sure.
You and me both.
Got that part down. Okay, so there's another one there too. Well, a lot of these have a lot of overlap, as you mentioned, but emotional. Talk to me about emotional.
Yeah. So this one is I thought it was going to be very much hand in hand with words of affirmation, but words of affirmation is more along the lines of appreciation. So, and I know we'll go into that, but emotional is more for our tender hearts, our people who like to feel seen and understood and heard when they're going through a more vulnerable time. So maybe this is for people who are a bit more sensitive, and when they feel really connected with someone, they're able to let down that guard and express how they're feeling, and for their partner to not judge them during those times of vulnerability is when they feel the most loved.
I can see that, yeah, and having someone to be there with you and kind of sit with you through if you're having whatever strong emotion it is that you are having, whether it's joy or grief or sorrow or anxiety or all of that stuff, the whole range.
Yeah.
So many emotions.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Now talk to me about financial. This seems probably pretty straightforward.
Yes, and this expands on the gifts language, but not just including presents, but also financial support.
Okay, so this is not just necessarily gifts, but maybe like basic needs and other things, and just investment monetarily in someone in a certain way.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now I want to talk about intellectual. This one was the one that was particularly interesting to me. I was like, oh, I can see this being a whole separate thing.
Yes. So this one is all about the meeting of the minds in a thoughtful discussion of more important issues, current events, things along those lines, which I feel like you would need two to tango on that one for sure. You'd have to be well informed if that's kind of how your partner wants to feel and express their love. So it's an interesting one. It's definitely different.
It is definitely different too. And it also makes me think about something that I spend a lot of time thinking about in terms of relationships and what works and what doesn't, is if people disagree well, because this seems very communicative in nature, and how you handle a disagreement and how you communicate that and respond to it and that kind of thing. That's kind of immediately where my mind goes on this one.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that too. It's interesting, right? Because you could both really feel that connection in talking about, more broad or important topics, but then if you disagree on them, well, then that could kind of inhibit the whole goal at hand, which was to connect. So
sure, healthy debate.
Yeah, right. Ideally a healthy debate.
For sure. Healthy debate on all manner of topics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and physical. This seems right on point with one of them. They got the same name.
Mm-hmm. This is right in alignment with physical touch. So just holding hands or cuddling, being in close proximity, more intimate. That's the love language for physical.
Okay, this last one, this seventh one, not that they're ranked or numbered, but the seventh one we're talking about today, also one that was very interesting to me. Practical.
Right. So this one is more in line with acts of service. So practical is, for instance, doing chores around the home or cleaning up for your partner, cooking dinner, running a bath, right? Those kind of acts of service.
These are the things we got to do. Someone's got to do them. You don't always want to do them. It's nice to maybe have someone help with that lift sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so if we are looking at these 7 modern love styles and we're intrigued by them and we want to kind of maybe understand our own love style better, what do we do? Is there a place we can go to figure that out?
Yes. So Truity, they have their own test that you can go in and take. So I did the love style test and I kind of had an idea of what my results were going to be, but it was a lot of fun and helps you kind of learn more about yourself, putting things in order of importance to you.
I did it too. I'm so interested. Were you had an idea of what your results would come back, or how did they come back for you?
So I had appreciation and emotional tied at the top, which I always knew my love language was words of affirmation. So I wasn't surprised when those two were tied. What was yours?
I got intellectual at the top.
Oh, wow.
I was super shocked by. So intellectual and emotional were pretty close together. They were within 1 point of each other. It's a rank from 0 to 16 if you take this free test on Truity's website, which we'll include the link to that in the notes and on WKYC.com if people are interested in doing that. But when I've always thought about the 5 love languages that were introduced to us by Dr. Chapman, it was always kind of physical touch and quality time that were tied with each other. And when I did this quiz, physical touch was there, and it was kind of just like right below emotional, but intellectual and emotional were the top tiers. I was very interested in that. I do like a healthy debate. I like having discussions about important things. The emotional thing kind of took me by surprise too.
Yeah, because you didn't have that as one of your top 2 with the 5 love languages, right?
No, I didn't. I mean, I did have, I guess if I were to rank, I've got it written down here because I've taken like different, assessments or whatever with the 5 love languages before. And I think the way that I received love under that system based on previous assessments was physical touch and quality time. And then words of affirmation, acts of service, and gifts was last for me. That's just not something that's ever really like vibed for me. But I was really surprised by these. Although when I was reading the description of intellectual, it did say it does kind of include a desire to spend that quality time together, but it's how you spend that quality time together, which is super true because I have always kind of like steered away from TV time in a relationship because I feel like it's so easy to just zone out and not talk to each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So that made a lot of sense to me.
I can see that too. That was my 3rd because I had appreciation and emotional tied. Intellectual was my 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that feels kind of in line with what you had thought based on the 5 love languages?
Yeah, I think so. I'm still curious to dive a bit more into that intellectual, like what exactly does that mean,
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I like being told that intellectual is one of my top love languages. Sure, yeah, why not? Okay, so we take this test, we figure out, maybe we learn a little bit more about ourselves, we learn a little bit more about how we give love, as well. What's the danger if we don't realize necessarily not only our own love languages, but our love style, I'll say, to use the Truity terminology, the love style that our partner is more attuned to?
Yeah, well, I think there can be a lot of just disconnect, right? Because, and sometimes that's why I think it's really helpful to have a shared love language with your partner. It's not a must, but because you will be, for instance, if my love language is emotional, I could be thinking that I'm being there for my partner in their time of need, and maybe they really need something along the lines of practical, and I'm not the type that's one to do the chores around the home, right? So, but I mean, if you know that, you're more likely to then do that for your partner. So it's important just to make sure that, you know, you are connected with them and they're feeling loved and appreciated and all of that.
That makes a lot of sense, because I know I've been in situations in the past where, you know, someone is giving love in the way that they enjoy giving love, and it's just not landing for me. And they're racking their brains. They're like, what am I doing wrong? You don't, like, why isn't this enough? And you're like, I don't know. It's just not my vibe. It's just not it. And not that any way is wrong, but that is an important thing to think about when you're thinking about long-term compatibility. And I don't know, do you think that any of these things are insurmountable if people have really different love languages?
Not necessarily, although potentially the financial, just because, you know, if you don't have the financial wherewithal for someone else, then maybe that is a limiting factor. But overall, I think most of these can be achieved.
Sure, and with a little bit of adjustment. I also think too, you know, it's a good, it can be a good balance if someone's a little bit different than yours. You know, if your love language is physical and somebody else's love language is activity, you know, it's good to get out of the house. You don't have to spend every single night cuddling and Netflixing.
Yeah, it can be good, for sure.
Okay, and how can we use this information then, now that we have it? Just some final thoughts here for couples or people who are in partnerships or looking to be partnered in some way, or just wanting to share love even with friends or other people in their lives. Now that we've got this information, how can we use it to better our relationships?
I think it's just really eye-opening, stepping outside of yourself to realize the way that you receive love and want to receive love and give love, it seems like so like a no-brainer, like, well, of course. But people are so different. So just that knowledge of that is really eye-opening and helpful. And I think opening up the conversation with friends and family to better understand that, keeping it in your back pocket, would definitely strengthen your friendships, your relationships, whether romantic or friendly.
I would totally agree with that too. And it's a good idea to be self-aware, right? It's a good idea to know the way that the things that we're putting out into the world are being received, or to try and kind of be aware anyway. Obviously, we need people to tell us how they're feeling when we do certain things. That's the thing there. And good communication and all of that good stuff. This is so fascinating. Natalie, thank you for bringing these love styles to us today.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun learning about them. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, we appreciate you here on the 3 Things to Know podcast. We can't wait to have you back again soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I always love chatting with Natalie. She is a wealth of information in the dating world. She's making matches. Her job is to bring people together. So makes sense. She's very attuned with what might be compatible, what might not be compatible. So always love to hear her perspective on these things. And very, very fascinating. You know, as I was telling Natalie, shocked, kind of. Not shocked, but definitely surprised and kind of intrigued at where I fell in that study for the 7 modern love styles. So again, we'll have that information linked in the show notes if you want to take that quiz. It's a short quiz. It didn't take me very long. It probably took me maybe 10 minutes to get through the quiz. And then they give you, you know, like a little blurb, a little paragraph about what they think about your main love style. And then if you want to, you can pay more to get the more in-depth analysis, the more in-depth report. I did not do that. I just did the free one. So anyway, it'll be linked for you if you're interested. Now, as we were talking about these different love styles, there are lots of different things that you can do for or with your partner in mind necessarily, and not necessarily together. So that's going to be the focus of our Need to Know in NEO. One of the things that you can do with a partner, there's a new spot that you need to know about. It is called Juneberry Table, and it's in Ohio City, and this belongs to a woman named Karen Small. She was the previous owner of Flying Fig, but that closed up and created this opportunity for her to launch Juneberry Table. And it just opened up in the middle of April, so it is brand new on the scene. So if that's part of your love language is experiencing new things, that works. And if you like to eat together, that works. And you can split it or you can pay for it. That might be a financial love style that could work for somebody. Quality time together, doing something together. So anyway, across the board, I just thought that this covered a lot of the love styles. So wanted to share it with you. It's on Lorain Avenue, 3900 Lorain Avenue. And they opened up on April 14th at 8 a.m. This is a brunch spot. So they have an all-day breakfast and lunch menu, and it's inspired by the chef's time spent living outside of Athens, Ohio, which, not to make it all about me, but I do love Athens, Ohio as a Bobcat. Oh, you? Oh, yeah? My fellow Bobcats out there? It really is. I mean, Athens is it's a very special place. So this brings a little bit of Athens here to the Cleveland area in Ohio City. Check it out. Juneberrytable.com is the website, and you can find them on Instagram at Juneberry Table. Speaking of Instagram, that brings us to a good follow. And this is another thing that I thought would maybe cover a lot of the love styles that people could potentially do together. So I came across them on Instagram when I was searching date night and Cleveland on Instagram. So that's how I found this account. And it is the account for Honor Yoga Westlake. So that's the Instagram handle, Honor Yoga Westlake. Obviously, it's in Westlake. And what I liked about this is that from time to time, they have a partner yoga class. So again, this could cover a lot of love styles. If one of you is into yoga and the other one isn't, that's activity and also something for you to do together. And someone can pay for it if they want to. Financial, I feel like a lot of these someone can pay for, and that might fit into the financial category. It's physical touch, potentially, if you're doing some of those moves and stretches together. So lots of opportunities here to span across those love styles. If you want to check that out, they're a good follow on social media, on Instagram. Again, that is Honor Yoga Westlake. And that will do it for this week's 3 Things to Know podcast. I always love having you guys here. Love using the new podcast space here at WKYC. I have to say, it's a pretty nice setup we have here. So probably we'll be trying to do most of our podcasts here in this space when we can, studio space permitting, and also schedule of the guests has a little bit of a factor, a little tougher to get in here earlier in the day because lots of things going on. So anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of this week's podcast. Share it with your friends. If you found it valuable, subscribe and leave a rating and a review. That really helps us connect with more people here in Northeast Ohio. And if there is something that you think people need to know in NEO, please let me know. If there's a person or an account that you're loving on social media, let me know about that. You can always DM me. My DMs are open, _Stephanie Haney. That's on Twitter and on Instagram. And if you think that there's someone that we should try to get on the podcast, let me know. I have a wish list a mile long, but I am always open to suggestions. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful week, and I will see you back here next time on 3 Things to Know.
Thanks for listening to 3 Things to Know with Stephanie Haney from WKYC Studios. Subscribe now to stay in the know.